It was beautiful. I was young then, and I was really impressed with it, with the carpeting and the statues all around, and it seemed huge to me.
On February 18, 1928, Lowe's State Theater opened on South Salina Street in Syracuse, New York. Designed by Thomas W. Lamb, the theater quickly became the city's most popular place to see silent movies and stage shows.
We went as often as we could, usually once a week. Sometimes the lines were long for a movie that everybody wanted to see. It was long lines around the block. The tickets were, I think, 25 cents for the matinee and 50 cents after 6 o'clock. My favorite movie there was Alexander's Ragtime Band, and I saw that 4 times in one day, because you could go in the morning and stay right through. They showed the movies continuously.
Unfortunately, in the 1970s, the theater was in dire need of repair and suffered greatly from low attendance. Lowe State Theater was closed and in danger of being torn down. In 1977, Syracuse Area Landmark Theater, or SALT, formed to preserve and renovate the theater. They managed to raise enough money to reopen the theater and change the name to the Landmark Theater. It was also around this time that the theater became known as one of the most haunted places in central New York.
I've heard that it was haunted in the dressing rooms, but I never saw the ghost.
People have been reporting the ghost of a woman wearing a long white dress since the mid-1930s. The ghost, commonly known as Clarissa, is most often spotted in the second-level balcony and near the stage. These locations make sense as she's believed to be a woman who fell off the second-level balcony after witnessing her significant other electrocuted on stage. Frank Malfitano, a former Landmark employee, has had several encounters with Clarissa.
One night I was working late and I heard footsteps on the stairwell leading up to the balcony and to the projection booth. And I didn't think it was unusual at the time, and I heard voices. And that's also not unusual because the proximity of the mezzanine to the street, sometimes you could hear voices from the street coming up. And we had a projectionist who would come in and fiddle around with the projection equipment late at night and cue up the films for film screenings. So I just thought it was the projectionist, and then I heard these heavy footsteps. And I heard a woman's voice, and we didn't have a female projectionist. So I thought, let me go investigate. And there was no one in the theater but me. And I went out, and I went up the stairways, and I yelled out, Bob, Dana, those were the names of the projectionists. And nobody responded. And I went up to the projection booth, I went in the balcony, and there was no one there. Do you know who Sheila McRae was? She was an actress who appeared on the Jackie Gleason television show. And her husband was Gordon McRae, who was a very famous Syracuse actor who starred in a lot of motion pictures. Carousel, Oklahoma, Tea for Two with Doris Day. He was a big-time star in the 40s and 50s. So we went inside the theater and I said, would you like to see the projection booth where we screen your husband's films? And she said, I'd love that. And it was just the two of us, and we walked up into the rear row of the balcony, which is where the stairwell was leading up into the projection booth. And she went white as a sheet, and she held my arm. She almost fainted. And I said, what's wrong? And she said, did you hear that? And I said, no. I said, what? She said, there was a hand on my shoulder, and it was cold, and it was a woman. And I turned around and I saw her, and she went away. She had to sit down and compose herself. She was in shock, absolute shock. Now, she was a great actress, but she wasn't that great. This was real. She felt the presence of the ghost. All I can tell you is something was definitely there that night.
Although Clarissa usually appears at unexpected times, many people enter the theater with hopes of seeing the landmark ghost.
I think that you could try to go summon her up. Skeptics are not going to see her. I think, people have to believe in paranormal activity. She's not going to reveal herself to people who don't believe. So I think if you believe that paranormal activity exists and is real, I think you should go pay her a visit.
The Central New York Ghost Hunters, formed in 1997 by Stacy Jones, have investigated the theater many times in hopes of finding paranormal activity. Jones has reported that the landmark is one of her favorite places to hunt. They collect evidence nearly every time they go in. CNY Ghost Hunters holds an annual ghost hunt around Halloween to raise money for the theater's restoration fund.
She's seen wearing a very long dress, has light hair. She is not happy when people break the rules of the theater, and she often shows herself to people who do.
They have collected numerous EVP and images of Clarissa, as well as raised several $1,000s for the landmark theater.
She haunts the theater and has haunted the theater since, we think, since the third or fourth year since the theater opened in the 1930s.